Hey, what's up, everybody? This is called Age of Quarantine. It's a daily interview series at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday on the St. Vitus channel and on my channel on the weekends. And I just want to thank everybody for your support. We made it into Billboard magazine on their website yesterday. They actually covered this program, which I started here on my couch out of boredom. So, yeah, it just goes to show, man, you can be in quarantine and still stay productive. So tonight, I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing my friend Chaka Malik of the band Burn and formerly of Orange 9 Millimeter. He put out a compilation in the late 80s called New Breed with his friend Freddy Alva, who also put out a book, Urban Style Graffiti in New York Hardcore. These guys have a documentary that's out streaming right now, and the iconic compilation has bands like Uppercut and Breakdown and a bunch of amazing bands, Absolution. And I'm going to talk to Freddy Alva for the first half an hour of the program. I'm going to welcome my first guest, Freddy Alva, and he's going to be joining us right now from town in Queens. So let's give him a second here, and he will be popping up on the screen. So let me start with this, Freddie. Let's take you back. Where are you from exactly?
Born in Peru, came to New York City in '79. Queens, Jackson Heights. Grew up in Jackson Heights. So yeah, Peru by way of New York, Queens.
Jackson
Typical,
Heights.
typical New York story, I believe.
Yeah. And Jackson Heights is such a melting pot for so many different subcultures. And obviously, when it comes to you, we're talking about hardcore, graffiti, and hip hop. Which came first for you out of the three?
Uh, Gonna say graffiti and hip hop at the same time, basically. Just every neighborhood. You grew up in the '80s in New York City and on the five boroughs. You did graffiti. Everyone tagged something, either from a little scratch in a notebook to a wall or something. Everyone just did it. And hip hop, that was the first thing, subculture I noticed, especially in the parks around here in the neighborhood. People doing jams in the park, bringing a boombox to play handball, and early rap was the soundtrack to that.
I gotta say too, like I'm from Long Island, but I went to a school called St. Mary's, which was not far from Queens. It was kind of like on the border of Long Island and Queens. This is in the '90s, and coming from the suburbs, a lot of the first time I was exposed to graffiti and hip hop culture was from Queens kids in Douglaston and Bayside. So it totally makes sense. The integration of all that and seeing crews. Now, were you? How did you get involved with graffiti?
Just organically, everyone just tagged up. I had a little crew that, just like everyone else, they had a neighborhood crew. You would do something around the neighborhood. I would call our crew like the slacker graffiti crew, meaning that, yeah, we did sometime in the neighborhood, and we went to the train layup yards a couple of times. But we were just most interested in going to parties. So, for example, a Friday night, we were supposed to go bombing, and we got all these raggedy clothes on, dirty clothes. You don't like the old paint on you. And then we heard, oh, there's a party going on. Let's go home, get home and change. We were ready to go to a party, meet girls. So we were the slacker graffiti guys. So I really commend everyone who was really dedicated and put their, put everything aside to pursue graffiti. But I always kept a love for it. Was never particularly good at it, but I always have friends that I always admired, and they kept at it for a long time. So through them, I always felt connected to graffiti.
What was the? Did you have a preference when you would go out bombing with your friends? Was it trains? Was it buildings? Or was it all fair game?
Well, like I said, we just did neighborhood stuff, like on the walls. I can count them three times I went to a train layup, and it wasn't spectacular bombing raid, So I would just say neighborhood tags, and I wouldn't really call myself a writer,
Right.
like
Well,
like a real writer, like a prolific, like someone that kept at it. Like I said, everyone wrote, so I just kind of just went along, but I really enjoyed myself as well.
And you obviously like documenting. So were you documenting stuff early on as a teenager when you were out and about doing your thing?
Not visually. I mean, I wish I had foresight to take a camera along. So no, I didn't do that. I did document stuff on like what they call black books, where people write their graffitis. So I have a couple old ones. It wasn't really when I got to hardcore that I guess the whole notion of documenting stuff, especially through fanzines, and then later tape compilations, and then records. Then the whole all that kind of concept I became more aware of.
Absolutely, and that leads me to my next question. But I see some more people are joining us. And guys, if you're just joining us now, this is Freddy Alva, who is the author of the Urban Style Graffiti New York Hardcore book, and also he produced the film New Breed. It's a film about his compilation that came out in 1989, and we'll be joined by Chaka Malik, who put that out with him just shortly. So, Freddie, how did you just discover hardcore? When did that come into your life?
I would say about 1985. I was a sophomore in high school, and just always been obsessed with all types of music, and keeping my eye on the radio. So besides all the hip hop and all the stuff I was listening to, I heard stuff like The Clash. They were a big segue from at that period. I guess they were doing more like this is Radio Clash. They're more like funk or New York hip hop influence stuff. So that segued into more punk rock. And then in high school, I met up with some guys that were really into hardcore. These guys, they had a band called Occupied Territory, and slowly I became friends with them. And they're always raving about going downtown, going to CBGBs, the matinee shows. And they always rave about this band called Bad Brains. And once I heard the Bad Brains, and it was just really the gateway into everything as far as hardcore. And coming down to shows eventually really just set everything off for me.
Absolutely, and that's an amazing time period to discover hardcore, and for the Bad Brains as well. At that point in their artistic career, they were still really at their.
And I would mention that the thing that made it easy segue into hardcore was finding a lot of kids that came from the same background as me, as well as far as being into hip hop in the early '80s, being into graffiti, and then started going to shows and find out a lot of kids that grew up just like me transition from hip hop to hardcore. So that made it a lot easier. I know a lot of people in the suburbs that have a different transition from like metal to hardcore or what have you. So just finding a lot of kids that kind of like me made it a lot easier.
I love talking about this a lot just because it makes so much sense now as an adult, thinking about all these cultures kind of melding together. They're all outsider cultures, and a lot of this stuff started in Queens. Like Ramon started in Queens, and obviously hip hop started in the Bronx. But again, there's just a lot of the different things in common that tie it all together, and all starting around the same era. What were the first shows that you started going to in around 1985, like you were saying?
I can remember the first show I went to. I went with a friend of mine from high school. He was more like a new wave kid, and we kind of just decided, go down to the Bowery and CBGBs. So the matinee was this local band, kind of forgotten band called Knockout James, local hardcore band. Interesting, I would see their graffiti all over Lower East Side, KO James. Band from Canada called Degolo Abortions played. And the headliner was Raw Power from Italy, who just really blew me away. They were, I didn't know what, at 85, hearing the news, what punk rock or hardcore is. I expected a certain look. But when Raw Power came out, these guys, like long hair, spandex pants. Not what I expected a hardcore band to look like, but once it started playing, it was just like a wall of sound. And that just really, besides musically, also aesthetically, also laid in my mind that you can be into hardcore, but you don't have to look hardcore,
Yeah.
So I I always kept that in mind. The most, and also by experience, a lot of people that were the most hardcore, go-getters, they dropped out by within a couple of years being into it. And the people you would least suspect, to be, visually, outwardly looking hardcore, the diehards have been in for like decades. So that musically and aesthetically always set a certain path for me.
Yeah, aesthetically, I know what you're talking about because growing up and discovering it, a little later than you guys, I grew up in the 90s. I guess you would call that the third wave. I always thought it was interesting that hardcore kids, which I say in quotes, looked very hip hop in New York. But then when you looked at, DC, I mean, obviously there was like, people wearing, people with mohawks and spikes and shit like that in New York. But there was also this like sort of b-boy look going on at the same time, especially in the 90s. But you go to look at California or DC, and they look more punk rock traditionally, and it all makes sense, especially with the documentary. If you watch a documentary and read the book, I just love that it sort of focuses on why that is.
Right.
Let me ask you. I mean, I obviously saw the documentary, and I have your book. But for those watching, I'm trying to just sort of get the message out. Like back then, in the mid to late '80s, what were some of the the hangout spots besides CBGB? Like, there was I'm sure other venues, record stores. Give us a picture of what that time was like going out.
Actually, this kind of ties in really. I have a little show and tell. I pull out some stuff to show, and the first thing I pulled out actually goes great what you're talking about. So I will describe a typical Sunday going downtown. Sunday would be the matinee, but matinee started about 3:30. But coming from Queens, we would start our journey, I don't know, 11, 12, just to get down there. But I will show you one thing I pulled out. It's it ties in what we're talking about. It's the cover of the cover of the tape compilation, which I dug out, which is a Chaka sitting on steps.
Yes.
On 8th Street, and I'll explain why that's the relation we're talking about. So that's I don't know if you can see it. That's the original picture I took that became the cover of the tape compilation. So that's taken on 8th Street between 6th Avenue and 5th. And the reason on a Sunday, we would go down to 8th Street and 6th Avenue because Venus Records is right there. Mm-hmm. So our first stop, we go to Venus Records, a couple of other stores there, but Venus was the most important one. So after Venus, we would cross Washington Square Park, go down Blicker Bob's, see what's going on there. And then from Blicker Bob's, that's on the west side, that's West 3rd, we would make our way east to the East Village. So the next stop would be See Here Fanzines, the magazine store. And then from See Here Fanzines, we'll go to Some Records, see what's going on there. And then by 3 o'clock, 3:30, make it down to the matinee. So all that took about 3 hours, 3.5 hours. So from the matinee on, we just hang out by CB's. If you want to get something to eat, or if you don't like a particular band, you go back to Some Records, see if you miss out on anything, and come back. And then after the show was over, like around, Lou, sorry, Lou was saying Second Coming. Yes, I forgot Second Coming. That's right, Lou. That's also by St. Mark's, yes. So after the show was over around, I'm going to say like 8 p.m., you would still be hanging out. You go back, see if Some Records still open, go down to Tompkins Square. And I wouldn't get back home till maybe I don't know, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and Sunday night and school night, my mom might have a fit. But that's the basic Sunday. We would do that. And also on Saturdays, it was 86, 87, there were the pyramid shows, matinee shows. But we do the same thing on Saturday, same routine, all the stores that we did on Saturday, we do the same thing all over again on Sunday. So that's like a general weekend for 86, 87. Some Records was open till about end of 88. So yeah, it's a good 3 years. That's basically myself and all these, like Chaka, I met outside Some Records, hanging out Some Records. Tons of friends I met on this particular, all these stops I just mentioned.
I was going to ask you about that next, but yeah, before we get there, I'm going to take some questions in a second. But
sure. Speaking of questions, I'm going to do a couple of book and fanzine giveaways that I've done. So I have a couple of Newbury related questions and graph questions, but we'll get to that later.
Sure, sure. One thing I love about your documentary, though, and the story that you just told, and obviously because I'm from here, it's easy to picture. It really does justice to painting the atmosphere in the picture. Like when I was watching the documentary, it's almost like I felt like I was there, even though I wasn't.
Hmm.
I lived on East Fifth and Bowery later on in my life, and this is way after some records, but I didn't know until I watched the documentary that Some Records was one block from me.
Right,
So
right off the bar. Yep.
that's why it was so easy to picture, and it just sort of made me bug out. Now, okay, a couple of questions. Jerry2697, did you ever hear of the band from the 80s, NYN? Is that a band you've heard of?
Early '80s, yes, and I know what it's New York. I don't know if I could say what the NLEN stands for. But I
Okay.
remember, yeah, it's called.
Yes.
They did a 7-inch called Headliner.
Okay.
Rare,
Now,
very rare, kill by death kind of 7-inch.
very cool. These are sort of like like gems from the 80s, I guess. If you're into the old hardcore stuff, real deep diving. Um, Peter Swine, hope you do this again so I can tune in longer. All of these episodes are going to be on my YouTube channel if you missed it or if you couldn't watch the whole thing. So it's Christopher Enriquez if you go on YouTube, so you can tune in. And then we had another one here. All right, I'm going to go back into mine. But how did you meet Chaka?
Hanging out with some records. We just I was with other kids from Queens. We just started talking, and somehow we ended up usually get a group of us going back to the same neighborhood. And Chaka is from Woodside. I'm in Jackson Heights, so it's the same direction going back. And we just became we also had like mutual friends as well. So that's basically it. It's very organic fashion you meet up somebody. But speaking of New Breed documentary, I have to give props to the director John Woods and the editor Orlando Arce. I'm listed as a producer, but my main job was to basically say if they asked me, "Hey, Freddie, does look cool?" I would just go thumbs up or down. That's
Right.
everything you see. Every scene in the documentary, they put everything together. It's such a all props, the storyline, the way
Mad
everything
props
fits to them.
to those guys. And John Woods did a great job directing. And, I'm not just saying this to blow smoke up your ass, but like it just, I love all the New York hardcore documentaries. I'm not going to say who's my favorite, but like this one really, for me, aesthetically, it was because you told a story that wasn't just about the compilation. You really told the New York, like, without going into sort of like the history of like who was the first band and what was the first venue, you did a really good job for an outsider and anyone nostalgic to just have a idea of what was going on. And Orlando is fantastic
Oh,
as
amazing
well.
guy.
He plays guitar in the band Still Suit, one of my
Right.
favorite bands. So, and they're back together. So you guys should all check out Still Suit. I think many of you know that already, but
Right.
just out
And Hello Phones as well. The great his current band, Hello Phones, with Dimi from Crown of Thorns on drums.
yes,
Great, great band as well.
yeah. And so you and Chaka met. You obviously became close. When did you start talking about putting out a comp? Tell us the story.
Um, about 86, no, 86, 80, 86, 87, I did a couple of fanzines. First one's called FTW, and then the second one's called New Breed. So I did a first issue New Breed. And Chaka knew all about it. I wanted to get Chaka involved as far as doing some kind of artwork, some graffiti type stuff. And then somehow I just came up with the idea, why don't we do a compilation tape for the second issue? Get all our friends that we knew. It had to be great timing. About 88, there was a lot of newer bands popping up. There weren't, I'm going to say it's a 2.5 wave. The second wave of New York hardcore, like 86, 87. This was like the 2.5 wave. So we just, a lot of them happened to be friends, people that we knew from the neighborhood or we went to school with or just hung out with. So it was great timing to do the compilation. So he also had, so Chaga was in charge of the technical making, meaning he had the double tape deck that we did. It was really very, very analog. We did a master tape, which I have right now. I have one of the master tapes over here. Um, it's a we had two of them. This is like a metal, quote unquote, metal heavy duty tape that we all the demos that we got, we put on this tape, and then for this tape we dubbed them in real time on Chaka's double tape deck. So and Chaka also contributed a lot of artwork to the magazine that came with it, which I have somewhere around here. Looks like that. So that's second issue, New Breed. Chaka did some artwork, like the Absolution page. You can see it. So basically, it was just we wanted to do something to give more of a view to all our friends bands that were really popping up, and also Absolution. We talk about in the documentary. A big reason to do the compilation is also to document Absolution. Absolution, we just blew us away, and the minute we heard them, and we didn't have the skills to do a Absolution record at the time, but we could do a tape. So the next best thing, we did a compilation with all our friends' bands, and that's how the New Breed came together. One of the best compliments I've heard of the documentary is someone said that the documentary is as good as the compilation tape, which is it's really amazing to hear. We try to keep the same vibe as the tape, kind of somewhere between lo-fi and just real, not too glossy, and just straightforward, kind of like a New York hardcore song.
Yeah, absolutely. And Freddie, you guys release online for streaming. Everyone can watch it. Where can they go watch it?
It's you can go on Vimeo and look up my Urban Styles NYC account. So look up that account and then just punch in New Breed documentary and it'll pop up. And the reason why we've been dragging our feet, the documentary came out 4 years ago, and we meant to do a DVD of it, but a lot of things, I don't know, life, whatever. John has like 3 kids and full-time job, so we just got derailed. I started doing a book and all this other stuff, but now with everything going on now, we just wanted to put it up and hopefully people can just take their mind off for a little bit.
Yeah.
Everything, craziness is going on, which I don't want to dwell too much in. You can just turn the news on; it's all over there. So.
Well, you talked about Absolution, and one of the reasons why I'm so excited about the documentary is because Absolution, those guys in the band and just the band in general, they just don't get the credit that they got because they were so innovative. There was no one that sounded like Absolution, vocally, guitar-wise, the whole thing. And those guys are just OGs. Their backstories, and dingy, their story.
Right.
So anyone watching, man, if you want to take a deep dive, if you like Burn, you want to see the history of where Gavin started and where that sound came from. That event here, Burn, you kind of tell where the influences came from. Check out the compilation and the documentary. Real quick, I saw that the comp was on Spotify for a while. Are you guys figuring out a way to get that up on streaming? Because I checked last night. I don't think it's on anymore.
Oh, it's not. Okay, yeah, sure. I could definitely. It was up on iTunes. I think it's still up on iTunes. I have to double check. But I was just gonna, I just gonna. You could look it up on YouTube as well if you just want to hear it. But I'll probably just put it up on Bandcamp and people can just download it as well. That's another way of doing it. Yeah.
I don't know if you see here, but I'm actually repping a uppercut.
Oh yeah. The upside down throws me off. I thought it said two guys.
No, that's
yeah, but yeah, that's great. A great band on the comp. I love those guys.
Absolutely, yeah,
and they still play to this day. A couple of guys. The singer is Kings Destroy, and the drummer for Uppercut is Kings Destroy, which is a totally amazing. I guess they classify themselves as like doom metal, but there's so much more than that. Really strong contemporary band. Yeah.
Yep, and that's a bunch of people that were on the comp. That's
exactly
Breakdown.
The Breakdown, exactly.
Uppercut and
right
and Raw Deal.
Right, exactly.
You kind of talked about it a little bit, but how did you pick the bands exactly?
Well, our first one was Absolution, and then we just made a list of everyone that we knew they had a band that I guess the main thing would have to be they couldn't be from they had done a record already, or been in another comp, except for Breakdown. We made an exception for Breakdown because we love those guys. So they had been on the Revelation comp in '87, but we just had to include them as well because their sound influenced so much of what was going on in '88. So we had to include them. And Lifeblood as well. They had a record out as well, but the Lifeblood tracks are with a different singer on the comp. So those are two exceptions we made. But the other one was just like there's a band called Direct Approach in the comp. Michael Scondato played in it, but the singer I was working.
Yes. Shout out to Mike.
Shout out to Mike. But the way they got in the comp, I was working in the mailroom with the singer, and I just told him, "Hey, I'm doing a comp." Like, "Hey, I'm doing a band." So that's how they got in the comp, because I was good friends with the singer. So it just came stuff like that. Just everyone that either we worked with, we went to school with, Under Pressure. The singer Under Pressure. I went to high school with the singer. He found out I was doing a comp. Like, "Hey, I have a new band. Can we be honest?" Like, sure. So it's just, it was just a perfect timing as far as a lot of friends that were doing bands, great bands, not just, I'm biased, of course, but I think a lot of the stuff on the comp is the band's best material.
Yeah.
It still holds up to this day. I'll still play the comp, and I never get tired of it.
That's the thing about hardcore that's so special is the bond where you remain friends with these guys for your whole life, and not all of them, but that seems to be a common theme. But the music, holds up, man, because it's just it's a primitive sound. It's not like glam metal or something that went out of style. It is what it is, and
right.
bands like we should shout out Outburst, who were one of the bands on the comp.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they one of the things that inspired me to do a book on graffiti in New York hardcore, there's a graffiti section in the documentary, and we profile like JR from Outburst, who did like very iconic Outburst imagery. And while working on the documentary 4 years ago, when I was looking at doing the graffiti part, maybe I could do a book about this. So one thing kind of led to another. Outburst, Gas Mask Solution, Chris B, Fit of Anger, amazing artists. All these guys they're on the compilation, on the documentary, and also in my book. So I've always
I want to shout out too, it's interesting. Since I started doing
What's up, Chaka?
What's up, guys?
What's up, Joe?
Yeah, man. The band Breakdown comes up.
Pinoy Power, Joe.
Hell
Pinoy
yeah,
Punk.
Filipinos in the house.
Yeah, Filipino in the house.
Fuck yeah. No, Breakdown has come up so much on the on this program that I've been doing in different interviews, and not only hardcore interviews. And it's interesting is like in the metal scene and in the punk scene and the hardcore scene. I mean, today the kids that are doing it, they still go out and they see Breakdown. I've seen Breakdown at Brooklyn Bazaar, and I've seen kids singing along and going off. In fact, to take it to another level, I had John Stanger from Helmet on here just a couple days ago, and he had listed Breakdown as one of his top 5. So, good bands, man. And Power Trip, another great band today, covered Outburst. So, and Killing Time, which is, essentially.
Shout out to Anthony Criminali. The comp, can you hear me?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So the comp, like I said, it featured a lot of, I guess, people our age that were up and coming at that time. But the great thing about the comp, we also had a couple of, I guess we consider older guys than us that were around the first wave. Like Anthony Criminali is a great example. He sings for Raw Deal, Killing Time. But back in, he's like an original A7, 82, 83 guy playing with his band, Gilligan's Revenge. Ray Parada, who sang for Abomination on the comp. He's also an original A7, 82, 83 guy who played in earlier incarnation of Warzone band called Rat Patrol. So I always felt it was great. It wasn't just newcomers, but people that were around before us, but they still continued that hardcore spirit, moving it on. And Anthony Criminali was a huge influence on myself, particularly. I grew up about 10 blocks from him, And then about 86, 87, like a lot of the neighborhood kids would go to his house and he would tape stuff in his collection, so we indoctrinated us into hardcore. So Anthony was just the best. Thank you for always mentoring us in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you guys that don't know, A7, which is now Niagara, that's
Right.
New York hardcore. That's the original spot where everyone played. Joe wants to know which borough repped the most on the comp.
Queens.
Obviously.
Yeah, because we were from Queens. All our friends were from Queens, so it was. If we were from Brooklyn, maybe all the bands would be more from Brooklyn. But that's just the way it was.
As we're reaching our 30-minute mark, I do have more questions for you. And
can I do the question giveaway? Just
yes.
So this for the book. The first person, you probably see it on UM. So the first person that can name BC Boys, Ad Rock and MCA. First person that can name their graffiti tags. They were both writers, Ad Rock and MCA. They could write in what were their graffiti names. Will win a free copy of the book. Okay, that's one giveaway. So let me know.
Somebody got it.
Let's see what they say. I can't see it. I can't see it on my end. What they say.
Shout out to Hugo, who's playing in Kill Your Idols these days. He says A-Bomb Nation, Abomination. Oh, never mind. I thought.
Oh no, that's not it. Oh no, I see it. So if anybody writes in, just message me on IG, and I'll get a book out to you. First one that wins that. Okay. Go ahead.
Let's say it one more time. Let's say it again. So if you guys can guess, or if you guys know the tag.
Ad Rock and MCA from BC Boys. What were their graffiti names?
That's right. And so if you could DM Freddy Alva on Instagram.
Or they want to write it here, and I'll tell you if it's I'll tell you if they're right or wrong.
Yes. All right. So we'll give it some time here, and I'll repeat that later on.
Okay.
When we're talking Chaka. So let's talk. Let's move to the documentary. When did you decide to put it together, and what's the reception been like so far?
We decided about 2015, me and John Woods, where we wanted to do a little bit of kind of where are they now, people from the comp, just do like quick 3-5 minute interviews and put up on YouTube. And Gingy Brown happened to be in town. So we're like, hey, when we do a quick little thing, and that quick little thing it's like 45-minute interview. And we just like, wow, it's, we could, if we interview other people like that, we can make a full length feature out of it. So that just came up. And we did some screenings for it 4 years ago about New York. We did about 4 screenings. I showed it in other parts of the country, in Philly, LA, and just got a great positive, overwhelming response to it. And now the documentary has been online for about 4 days, and it's up to about 6,000-7,000 views. So it's just people really dig it. Really, thank you for all your feedback. I haven't heard one negative thing about it. So thank you for watching it. Some people keep rewatching it, which is great.
Yeah, man. And like I said, even for me, like I started going to shows in the 90s, 94, 95. It still brings me back to that time when I look at it, because of how different New York is today. You know what I mean? Like even I'm sure for you guys, by the mid 90s, you were already rolling your eyes and kind of saying to yourselves, wow, the neighborhood has changed. But, it just really ties that whole era together, the pre-social media and all that stuff. I see a lot more people joining, and so I'm going to repeat a few things that I already said. But we are here talking about the New Breed compilation, early New York hardcore comp that came out in 1989, and it's also a documentary that's out on streaming, and it's fucking great. So check it out. This is Freddy Alva, one of the filmmakers, and also the author of Urban Style Graffiti in New York Hardcore. That's a great book. Where can everyone follow you again? Just drop the socials.
Well, you can just Freddy Alva _ NYC, or the book Urban Styles _ book. Yeah.
Okay. I have a couple last few questions, and some
Sure.
of them are my standard sort of lists. But
Okay.
I'll start with this. What can we expect? Any other documentaries or books in the future? Are you working on anything else?
Well, I've been doing as far as books, I've been doing I guess a continuation of my graffiti and New York hardcore book. So I've been doing these fanzines, the theme with a particular theme, and getting a bunch of artists to do a page. So the first one was the New York Hardcore Black Book, which I got about 46 artists to do a page for a New York hardcore band. Could be a graffiti style or painting, whatever. Second issue just came out, and it's the American Hardcore Black Book. So same theme, just more artists, and just ask them to pick any American hardcore band from the past 4 decades to do a page. And so the third issue is going to be the international hardcore. So any worldwide band for artists to do a page. And so that's been a lot of fun. It's been a great continuation of the book. And they're just a lot of fun to do. I really, I love seeing the artwork, all the creativity behind it. I admire, I have some amazing artists that I would never thought I would be in touch with and in contact with, and they're contributing to this, little fanzine. So thank you for that. And the other book project that I'm getting back into working on is a book on ABC No Rio, which is a club that I was involved with. I'm going to say 90 to 91, but a year and a half. I booked shows there, and that was a totally different, I guess, scene than the New Breed. But some people from the New Breed era carried on to the ABC era, and the whole '90s hardcore is a whole different beast. So ABC No Rio, I'm going to try to do a book, oral history, which has many as participants in it, with a lot of as many photos and flyers and all that. So I have plenty of time now to work on it. So I'm getting a start on that.
Hey, Freddie, it's amazing because one of my good friends who was actually in Bad Trip, Artie Shepard, he
Yeah.
was briefly in the band, who owns St. Vitus.
Right,
We
right.
talked about
I booked them. The Mind Over Matter?
Mind Over Matter.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about this many times, about how a lot of New York hardcore documentaries just seem to skip over the ABC No Rio era. I'm very lucky to have gone there quite a bit. I missed that era that you were booking, but there were some amazing bands coming out of there. One particular is obviously Born Against,
Right,
turned
right.
to Rorschach, and there's just a laundry list of bands that were sort of these New York hardcore adjacent that I want to tell everyone to check out, like Gin Mill and Die 116 and Youngest Side and all these great bands. So for you to cover that, I just want to say thank you, because I was really inspired by that scene. And
Oh,
people
thank you. It can be a little controversial. You mentioned ABC No Rio, people into it or not. So I want to give a more non-biased overview of the place, either the pros and cons of the place. I'm a little more attached to my involvement, but I'll try to be as non-judgmental about it as possible as I can.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's fucking dope, though. I just want to say, again, like, just no one else has covered that stuff, and the way that you're doing it, it's a beautiful book, and it's a beautiful movie, just the way it all looks. So, let me
Thank you, man.
my lists. Top 5 New York hardcore albums.
Kraut, Adjustment to Society, Cro-Mags, Age of Quarrel. Albums, I'm gonna say Damage, Sins of Our Fathers. Sins of Rest. Damage, Sins of Our Fathers. It's a pre-prong band. Did an amazing LP in '85, kind of under the radar. Damage, Sins of Our Fathers. It's never been reissued. It's an incredible record, incredible band. Two bass players, two guitarists. Mike, yeah. Mike Kirkland went on to, I think, believe Prong afterwards. So that's one of the first shows I saw was Damage, and COC at CBGB's, and that was insane. So I always keep a great spot for me. So what was it? Crowd, Chromax, Damage. Fourth, I'm gonna do a compilation. It's New York Trash. It came out as a cassette originally. It's a D New York Hardcore compilation. The '82. It has Beastie Boys, the Mad. Anything you could. All the incredible bands.
Right? Does that have Bad Brains on it?
Bad Brains on it, exactly. It's the best comp. And the fifth one, I'm gonna go Bias. It's a record I put out. Citizen Arrest, Colossus. I know, latecomer, but I love that record, and I think it still stands the test of time.
Are you still putting records out today, Freddie?
Every 2-3 years I'll do a project. For example, when we did the book, the first pressing of the Urban Styles book came with a flexi with Crazy Eddie and Johatsu. So that was on my label. And the new thing I just did is Chaka's current project, Ghost Decibels. We did it. Yeah. We did a digital release of it, and we were hoping to do a physical release of it, but now everything going on, everything kind of threw for a loop. But you could Chaka would definitely talk more about that. The music is doing. If you listen to it, it's sonically maybe miles away from like Burn or anything and stuff. But if you really pay close attention, it's the same sentiment and feelings he was trying to achieve with those bands. So I love it.
Yeah. Well, Chaka, if you're watching, I think you did this the other day. You probably know how to request to join in. So when I see you pop up, I'll plug you in here. But
okay. So I'll let Chaka ask the other question as far as the giveaway for the fanzine. So I told him to come up with a couple questions as well.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, guys, we're doing some giveaways. All right, there's Chaka.
Yeah, there's Chaka. All right. I'm gonna pass the baton. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much, man.
Take care, man.
Keep doing.
Thank you, man.
Hell yeah.
Take care, buddy. Thank you.